So after zooming out and thinking about the broader needs of society and some of the context shifts in this relationship between technology and society, this is a graphical summary of a proposed 20-year vision for the profession to help unlock the higher potential of the engineering profession to contribute to society. And basically what's shown here is this shift of the focal point of the profession from strong technological focus around established technologies up into the center point at the nexus of socio-technological leadership and also closer to cutting-edge technologies. And it's important to recognize in this that we're talking about the focal point. So to what are we optimizing the various systems of the profession, the way we educate engineers, the way we regulate engineers, the type of workplaces we conceptualize for engineers. So it's not to say that we won't still have individual engineers that choose to specialize very much on technological kind of aspects and even with established technologies, but we're talking about the collective whole and where we're optimizing for it. An important thing to recognize in promoting this vision for the future is that we're likely to encounter a lot of people that sort of critique this by saying, you know, hey, you're just trying to kind of aggrandize or self-aggrandize the engineering profession, saying that engineers should be the leaders and only they could do it. And that's a legitimate concern, but what we need to sort of focus on is more the broader arguments of why this makes sense for society. It shouldn't be about promoting the engineering profession for the sake of the engineering profession. That's a false reason for doing it. What we're saying is that there's a strong case, given what we're seeing in the broader context shift, for engineers to play this role more centrally at the center of the socio-technological relationship. And in fact, I would say there are three sort of main imperatives that are, I think, arguing for this shift in focal point. The first is, as we talked about before, this relationship between technology and society is accelerating, becoming more entwined, becoming more critical. And it's becoming mission critical for the whole human species, even more than in the past. And so I think that points to, it's not an either-or situation, but a both-and situation where all hands need to be on deck in ensuring that this relationship unfolds in a way that's positive for society. And so within that, we can sort of ask the question of, if the engineering profession doesn't choose to make this shift in focal point, who will fill the gap, or what will fill the gap? And we can look at sort of what's been happening over previous decades as the engineering profession's focal point has shifted away. And I think the obvious answer is that market forces tend to be the biggest sort of factor that are shaping this relationship between technology and society, with some moderating effect by government policy and some with nonprofits kind of intervening. But in general, if engineers choose not to shift to this focal point, I think we'll see more of markets driving the relationship between technology and society. And the question is, are we as engineers comfortable with abdicating sort of our leadership role in guiding this relationship to markets? Second is this idea of the widening technological literacy gap. So we can ask the question of that, if engineers do not step up to take more of a leadership role at the nexus of socio-technological concerns, again, the people that do take that step up and fill that void, to what extent will they have the deep technological background to be able to optimize that relationship? And we're seeing a lot of evidence, as we talked about previously, of the general public and other parts of the population. Actually, we're seeing a widening technological literacy gap, where the understanding of the what's beneath the technologies and the social implications is actually not there all the time in order to make really informed decisions at this fast-paced and critical nexus. And finally is this concept of professional responsibility. As professionals, is it actually acceptable for us to accept the role of technological expert where we don't know how those technologies will actually unfold in society and to what extent they will be positive or negative? Is it enough for us to basically pass that off and let those decisions be made by someone else? Or is it actually our professional responsibility to go beyond and actually intervene in that way? So in this vision, to point out four sort of key elements to this vision, which are actually quite usable when you actually start to think about subsets of the system. So you can think about it from a university context or a workplace concept and go through these key elements and sort of use them as sort of almost a litmus test or as markers of where we need to be on the vision. So the first is the idea of socio-technological leadership. To what extent are we on this sort of journey from technological expertise towards playing at the nexus of socio-technological leadership for all these reasons we've just talked about? The second is the concept of evolutionary capacity. So we know that this relationship between technology and society is accelerating. And so therefore it follows that the engineering profession itself must be evolving itself at a commensurate pace. We need to catch up, keep up, and then be able to actually lead in that relationship. That means that we need to be looking at all the systems of the profession, the way we educate engineers, the way we regulate engineers, and thinking about how quickly are we evolving those systems to be able to stay at the forefront. Next is the concept of strong identity. So here is the idea that the engineering profession itself needs to understand its role so that it can self-optimize, and it also needs to have a good enough understanding with its key partners, the scientists, the politicians, the civil servants, others who are critical in this relationship between technology and society. There needs to be broad enough understanding of the identity and role of engineers so that we can be enabled to play that role strongly. And finally is this idea of championing technological literacy. So as we said, there's evidence of a widening gap amongst the general public in terms of technological literacy and understanding what's beneath the technology we use every day and what the implications of it are. So when we zoom out and look at this bigger relationship between technology and society, the analysis shows that it's not enough just to leave that up to certain deep practitioners like engineers and other STEM professionals. In order for this relationship to be optimized more broadly going forward, the whole general public is going to need a better base technological literacy.